We are the Entrepreneurs Unity Group. Today I'll be discussing Soldier Boy, a film based on the life of the youngest soldier to serve in World War II. The film opens on a Russian family of 3 relaxing by the river. Sergei Alyoshkov, the youngest, is bragging to his older brother and mother about how high up a tree he is when German fighter planes unexpectedly come overhead. The mother orders her children to take cover in the nearby bushes, but her 6-year-old insists he is not frightened and fires a slingshot at the airplane nevertheless. Surprisingly, he is able to hit the jets and cause them to explode. When he turns to look, however, he finds that his loved ones are missing. Frightened by his nightmare, Sergei wakes up and cries out for his mom. Someone knocks on his door at that exact moment. He rushes to meet it, thinking it's his mom, but instead a distraught neighbor woman enters the house. She offers her gratitude to God for sparing his life before breaking the news that his mother and brother have passed away. The youngster doesn't understand a word she's saying and would rather wait at home for his mother. They've been assaulted by Germans, the woman says, and he has to get out quickly. At that moment, a group of troops arrives at their doorstep. When Sergei tries to escape with her, the lady shoots him dead before he can reach the window. The little boy, only 6 years old, has been abandoned by his whole family and social circle. Sergei witnesses his entire neighborhood go up in flames as he flees the house. After unsuccessfully trying to reach his mother, he bolts from the house. Eventually, after a period of running, he finds himself in the center of the forest. The lost youngster begins to cry out for his mother to come and fetch him. In the forest, he spends the night. The following morning, as enemy forces are closing in on him, he stops to sip water from a river. Sergei hurriedly takes refuge within the tree's roots, knowing full well that the ground beneath him is treacherous. While he is terrified by the presence of a snake, he does not yell or flee. The troops present a greater threat to Sergei than the snake does. They dine beside the river and then leave, leaving Sergei to gorge himself on the leftovers. But at the end of the day, the small child is completely spent. He's been on the road for 2 days with no food and no plan, and he's starting to get hungry. In spite of his injuries, he continues to hobble along. While walking, he comes across some wild berries and eats them. However, an explosion behind him abruptly stops his feast. The young man begins to feel faint and imagine a presence behind him. Despite the danger, he keeps his composure, assuring the other man that he is not afraid because he is armed with a rifle. He takes a few steps ahead on his limp, but then passes out. 2 of the soldiers sneak up on him while he's sleeping. Commander Kuznetsov of the Russian army waits for his patrol members as the scene shifts to the army base. The 2 adults enter carrying the wounded child. The small child finally opens up and identifies himself when the troops assure him they are on his side. The troops make fun of the boy as he shakes the commander's hand and introduces himself. When they see the young boy, the troops can't help but show their devotion and surround him. A water bottle and food are forced onto him. The commander, who is usually distant, shows compassion for the child. Katya, a nurse, tends to Sergei's wounds and is enamored with him as a person. The youngster expresses interest in being a military and requests her to draw a tank on his injuries. The wounded warriors find comfort in the child's company. Sergei finds the commander's rifle and batch quite interesting. The commander, having removed the bullets, also lets the young kid play with his honorary pistol and answers all of his inquiries. Sergei proudly displays the tank he'd sketched on his tummy and tells him about his military experience. Healing for the youngster is progressing rapidly. Katya, the nurse, pleads with the commander to keep Sergei with the unit, but the commander is adamant that he must send the kid to an orphanage, citing safety concerns. The troops were completely devoted to Sergei. Many people stop over to see him throughout the day. They give him binoculars and food supplied from faraway relatives. A member of the battalion eventually approaches the commander to request that the young guy be allowed to remain with the unit. The troops have developed strong feelings for the little boy and have come to consider him a member of their own family. Having him there eases the stress of war for them. The commandant is insistent, though, that the kid be sent to the orphanage. Many troops are injured the next day as the enemy attacks. Sergei is picked up by a van and driven to the orphanage. The commander informs the youngster and presents him with an honorary handgun made of wood. In return, the youngster embraces the commander, saying that he worries for the commander's well-being. After being embraced by him, the commander has a change of heart. He basically adopts Sergei into the army and urges him to stay there as his son. Thrilled to having Sergei stay with them, the soldiers spend that evening shopping for Sergei some little army uniforms. As soon as the commander finds Sergei, he wakes him up and gives him the uniform. He dons the uniforms and marches about like a genuine soldier. Little Soldier Boy is what the rest of the troops start calling him. The Germans begin an airstrike on the unit while the child plays wildly in the street. The troops whisk Sergei away to safety and immediately engage the enemy. There is a substantial increase in the number of wounded soldiers. Sergei is eager to contribute, so he fills the water bottles of the other soldiers. Since his eyes are bandaged, one of them begs him to read a letter from home. The little child is eager to lend a hand but is unable to do so since he cannot read. He then begins to invent false information about the letter's contents, such as the soldier's cow being safe at home. The other soldiers advise the soldier who says he doesn't have a cow that he should just laugh along with the narrative. He reads the letters of others in the same way, hoping to lift their spirits. Next, we observe Katya and the commander having a conversation. The two appear to feel something for one another but never admit it. A while later, Sergei reveals to the commander that he has the rank of orderly in the battalion and proceeds to introduce himself in that capacity. On the other hand, the youngster later witnesses the destruction of a soldier's outpost. The leader shows him how to show respect by removing his hat before entering the cemetery. The next day, he begs his superior for a mission and is assigned to hand out the letters to the troops. He gets the job done quickly and smoothly, and even has the troops dance for him. The next day, Sergei ventures out with his binoculars a fair distance from the base. While fiddling with it, he spots the movement of a leg inside a haystack and immediately returns to report it to the battalion. The troops are dubious, but they decide to accompany the kid anyhow. As they approach the haystack, they are warned of the presence of 2 German agents lurking below. In the end, the spies are caught, and the boy gets high marks for his sleuthing skills. The commander presents Sergei with his adoption papers that night. This legally makes him the father of the child. Given that Sergei is aware of the commander's love for Katya, he generously agrees to accompany the guy on his journey to express his feelings to her. However, the two observe her interacting with another man and incorrectly conclude that she has moved on to another suitor. German forces launch another assault on the facility. The troops at the front line appreciate Sergei's assistance this time around, but they still tell him to return inside the shed since it's too dangerous to be outdoors. When he arrives at the outpost, he finds the commander and the others in a state of panic since they have lost contact with the colonel through phone. A serviceman has been dispatched to mend the damaged wiring. The soldier is fatally wounded, and Sergei follows him to the scene. He then fixes the wiring himself after asking the dead soldier how he should do it. After re-establishing contact, further reinforcements are dispatched. Everyone's lives are saved by the 6-year-old. In a later scene, the commander and Katya have a conversation by the river. At last, the commander admits his feelings for her and begs her to raise Sergei as his own son. Katya is ecstatic, but before she can express her joy, a soldier approaches them and hands the commander a letter informing him that they have been released from the base. On the next day, Sergei and the rest of the troops set off for their new location. Unfortunately, they encounter a minefield that destroys several of their cars. Sergei was particularly close to the group's orderly, and the explosion killed him along with the commander. As he sobs into the commander's arms, he embraces him. The sick and injured are taken along on the trek to the new headquarters. Finally arriving at the opposite base, they are greeted by the general, the head of the commanders. Even he is taken aback by the kid's drive, and he offers his congratulations to the commander for raising such a bright youngster. The next day, the child and his division are each given a guard's flag. If the commander gives him his badge, he'll save his nation, he says. Their base is assaulted viciously throughout the night, and their leader is buried alive beneath the rubble. Sergei begs his father to help him and sobs for him. When he summons the rest of the troops, they bring the leader out. The next day, Sergei goes up to a wounded commander, with whom he had been attempting to save his life the day before and had harmed his hands in the process. The youngster has become an integral cog in the machine. Without any relatives to stay behind, he follows them wherever the conflict takes them. The film concludes with the unit relocating to a new facility. A narrator explains that he fought at Stalingrad and continued on to Poland with the troops. The story of his famous bravery, which has made him the youngest soldier in history, is now being told all around the world. You can support this channel by subscribing for future updates, turning on alerts, and leaving a like on the video. To those who have been following along, thank you.